The Galactic Military Academy buzzed with tension as species from across the known systems mingled in the vast training complex. Overhead, the artificial sky projected the swirling nebulae of the Andromeda sector, a reminder of the territories they were all sworn to defend. But down in the sparring arena, the only thing that mattered was survival. Cadet Maya Chen stood at attention with the rest of her unit, sweat still gleaming on her dark skin from the morning's combat drills. At 22, she was older than most cadets, having spent 4 years in Earth's Special Forces before qualifying for the Academy. The other species often underestimated humans, a mistake that had served her well in previous encounters. General Kithra swept into the arena, his towering 8-foot frame casting long shadows across the polished floor. The Zephyrian's chitinous exoskeleton gleamed like polished obsidian, and his 4 arms moved with predatory grace. 2 large, multifaceted eyes surveyed the assembled cadets with obvious disdain. Behind him trailed a retinue of junior officers from various species, their expressions ranging from nervous to openly hostile. Pathetic, Kithra's voice resonated through his chest cavity, the sound amplifying naturally through specialized vocal chambers. 3 months of training, and you soft-skinned mammals still move like prey animals. Maya kept her expression neutral, though her jaw tightened imperceptibly. She'd heard worse during her Earth military service, but there was something particularly grating about Kithra's tone, a dismissive arrogance that went beyond typical military hazing. The general's primary eyes fixed on her unit. The human contingent appears especially fragile today. Perhaps the Academy's standards have fallen too low. Sir, permission to speak. Maya stepped forward, her voice steady. Kithra's secondary arms twitched, a sign of amusement among his species. The little human has something to say. How entertaining. I was wondering if the general might demonstrate proper combat technique, sir. For educational purposes. A ripple of unease passed through the assembled cadets. Several of the alien species exchanged glances, recognizing the challenge implicit in Maya's words. The Zephyrians were known for their pride and their inability to back down from direct confrontation. Kithra's mandibles clicked together in what might have been laughter. You wish to learn from a superior warrior? Very well, human. Perhaps a demonstration of the gulf between our species will be instructive. He gestured with one of his secondary arms, and the other cadets quickly formed a circle around the sparring area. Maya noticed several of her human classmates looked worried, while the alien cadets seemed curious or, in some cases, anticipatory. The rules are simple, Kithra announced, beginning to circle Maya with fluid, predatory movements. First contact wins. No weapons, no protective gear. Just natural ability. Maya nodded, settling into a combat stance her instructors back on Earth would have recognized, balanced, centered, ready to move in any direction. Her hands hung loose at her sides, but her weight was distributed perfectly on the balls of her feet. Kithra studied her stance with professional interest. Interesting. The human thinks she understands combat. Let me show you how wrong you are. Without warning, his primary right arm whipped forward in a casual backhand slap, not meant to seriously injure, but to humiliate. The strike was fast, enhanced by Zephyrian reflexes that were naturally superior to most species. But Maya wasn't most species. She had spent years training with Earth's most elite soldiers, learning techniques developed specifically for human physiology. More importantly, she had studied the anatomy of every major species in the Academy's databases. She knew that Zephyrians, for all their natural advantages, had one critical weakness: their wrist joints, necessary for their complex four-armed locomotion, were more flexible than strong. As Kithra's arm extended, Maya moved with a precision that caught even her by surprise. Her left hand came up to intercept his wrist while her body pivoted left, using his momentum against him. Her right hand locked onto his elbow joint, and she applied a specific torque that human martial artists had perfected over centuries of combat. The technique was called a standing armbar, and it was devastatingly effective against opponents who expected their reach advantage to keep them safe. The sound of Kithra's chitinous wrist plating cracking echoed through the sudden silence of the arena. The general's roar of pain and surprise was cut short as Maya maintained the lock, applying just enough pressure to ensure he understood the precariousness of his position. For seconds, she said quietly, loud enough for the circle of cadets to hear. "Sir." For a moment that stretched like eternity, nobody moved. Kithra's 3 free arms twitched with the instinct to retaliate, but even the slightest movement sent fresh waves of pain through his trapped limb. His large eyes fixed on Maya with a mixture of shock, pain, and something that might have been respect. "Release him," came a voice from the arena entrance. Major Thorne, the Academy's head of combat training, strode forward with military precision. The grizzled veteran had served with distinction in 3 interstellar conflicts and commanded respect from every species in the Academy. Maya immediately released the hold and stepped back, coming to attention. Kithra cradled his injured wrist against his chest, his breathing heavy but controlled. "General Kithra," Major Thorne's voice carried the weight of authority, "I believe you've completed your demonstration. Perhaps you should have our medical staff examine that wrist." The Zephyrian's mandibles worked silently for several seconds before he managed to speak. "The human, fights dirty. The human," Thorne replied evenly, "fights effectively. Which is what we're training them all to do." He turned to address the assembled cadets. "This is your lesson for today. Every species has advantages and disadvantages. Victory goes to those who understand both their own capabilities and their opponent's weaknesses." As the medical team arrived and began tending to Kithra's injury, Maya found herself surrounded by her fellow cadets. The reactions were mixed. Some seemed odd, others nervous, and a few of the larger species looked at her with newfound wariness. "How did you know about the wrist joint?" asked Ensign Vradek, a young Centaurian whose species was known for their analytical minds. Maya shrugged, trying to appear casual despite the adrenaline still coursing through her system. "Research. And a lot of practice." Later, as the cadets dispersed to their next training sessions, Major Thorne approached Maya. "Walk with me, cadet." They moved through the Academy's corridors in silence for several minutes before Thorne spoke again. "General Kithra has been pushing the human cadets harder than the others. Some of the instructors believe it's because he lost several ships to human pirates in the Outer Rim conflicts." Maya nodded, unsurprised. "I suspected as much, sir. What you did today was necessary," Thorne continued. "But it's also stirred up a hornet's nest. The Zephyrian military contingent isn't known for forgetting slights. You'll need to watch yourself." "Understood, sir." Thorne stopped walking and turned to face her. "On the other hand, you've also just demonstrated something important to every species in that arena. Humans aren't just another weak link in the galactic defense chain. We're problem solvers. We adapt. We find ways to win even when we're outmatched." He paused, studying her face. "That's exactly the kind of officer we need in the coming conflicts. The intelligence reports suggest we'll be facing threats that conventional tactics won't handle." Maya felt a chill despite the Academy's regulated temperature. "What kind of threats, sir?" "The kind that don't play by the rules any of our species understand," Thorne replied grimly. "The kind that will require officers who can think beyond the limitations of their biology and training." As they resumed walking, Maya reflected on the events in the arena. In 4 seconds, she had changed her trajectory at the Academy, possibly her entire career. But more than that, she had struck a blow for her species' reputation among the stars. The galaxy was vast and filled with dangers both known and unknown. But humans had something that many other species lacked, the ability to turn their weaknesses into weapons, their limitations into advantages. In the sparring arena, that had been enough to break a Zephyrian general's wrist in 4 seconds. In the conflicts to come, it might be enough to save the galaxy itself.